Well, get ready. 3 small-town guys on a hunt for a piece of history make the discovery of a lifetime.
All it took was an old story, a metal detector, and a lot of digging. Channel 4's Liz Loheis has a story you won't see anywhere else.
Yeah, Tom and Demetria, the story was told first to a 7-year-old boy more than 40 years ago. It's been retold many times, but today there's a new ending.
He was the kind of person, short, sweet, and to the point.
David Landreth's great-grandpa always said a lot without using many words.
When I was probably 7 or 8 years old, my great-grandfather would tell me stories about the maneuvers coming through Middle Tennessee. And then it came to this story of the airplane.
First gunnery practice by a squadron of the latest and swiftest of fighting planes.
It was May 5th, 1943. A young soldier flying a P-39 Airacobra fighter jet took off from Chattanooga as part of a training mission, but he never made it past this Gordonsville field.
And it was doing its maneuver and went straight into the ground and exploded, and that's pretty much the story.
The pilot, 23-year-old Roy Corwin Davidson, died in that explosion, leaving behind a young wife. Like people in small towns do, folks would talk, bringing up that crash from time to time. But
never crossed my mind to go looking for it.
That is until Landreth got to chatting with his next-door neighbor.
Charles comes up and he says, "Hey, do you know the story of the plane?" And I said, "Yes, I do."
The two called up their friend Keith Shira, told him to bring his metal detector.
I think that's the first piece that I dug up that was like, wow, that's cool.
The men didn't expect to find much, figured most of it had been recovered that week back in 1943. Boy, were they wrong.
Charles called me at home one night and he said, "We found it." So I threw my shoes on, got in the truck, took off over the hill. Sure enough,
they found the buried treasure. What is this, Keith?
I believe this is part of one of the pistons in the engine. I think this is a piece of gearbox, and this had to be, you know, on his person or, you know, pretty close. Now here's some pieces of the canopy. I cleaned that one up.
He discovers more every time he goes through it.
They don't, well, actually, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that.
You never got that far, did you?
I'm pretty sure that's a piece of the 37mm cannon.
Shira spent more than 2 weeks digging on the site, spending an hour or two at a time, until the day he struck gold.
I was down in that hole about 3.5 feet deep, and I saw this base piece.
All of the other pieces were pretty easy for Shira to pull out. This one wasn't budging.
And as I continued to dig upward, I kept sticking my hand back in there. I felt the edge, and I kept going up, and finally got to the very tip, and I was like, oh my gosh.
It took 4.5 hours to dig out this 85-pound propeller.
It's made me pretty happy that, you know, that the story is actually true, which I knew myself it was true, but you tell somebody, say, "Hey, there's an airplane buried in my field," you think somebody's going to believe me? No. Now I've got proof it's there.
And that great-grandfather who told little David that story some 40 years ago,
he's sitting up there watching right now saying, "I told you so." So there you go.
the men plan to donate some of the pieces to the Smith County Heritage Museum. The bragging rights they'll keep for themselves. Liz Loheis, Channel 4 News.